Hello and welcome to my little bookish corner of the internet. My name is Harriet. Today I'm going to be doing my spoiler review for A Storm of Swords Part 2, which is Blood and Gold by George R.R. Martin. If you haven't seen my reviews for the previous novels in this series, which is the A Song of Ice and Fire series, I'll leave the playlist link down below so you can go and check it out. But let's get started. So I'm basically going to do a wrap up for the previous book, which was actually the first part of this book, so it was split into two within the UK. But they are both called A Storm of Swords, but the review for the first part, which is Steel and Snow, literally went up the other day, so you can check that out if you haven't already seen it. But let's do a wrap up for that book first, before I get into the review for this one. So in this book, there was a lot going on. So much happened. I'm not going to explain the characters because if you've already watched my previous reviews or if you've started reading this series, you'll hopefully know about most of them by now. By the end of this book, most of our main characters are still alive and still kicking. We've got Robb Stark, who has broken his promise to the Freys. So he promised that he would get married to one of the Frey daughters, and he instead got married to someone that he fell in love with called Jane. And now he's going to have to make that up to Lord Frey, who is like the dad of all of these kids. They've got so many children. So he's got that to make up for. We've got Arya, who is kind of travelling around the Seven Kingdoms, not really knowing who she belongs to and who she should be. She's had to deal with so much stuff for someone so young, so she's really going through it. Got Daenerys, who is building up her army to come and take over the Iron Throne. Jaime was released from Catelyn Stark's hostage and was basically sent with Brienne of Tarth to go and have an exchange for Jaime for Sansa. In this whole process, Jaime has actually had his sword hand cut off, so he can no longer sword fight. So he has got so much pain and suffering that he's gone through, and all he wants is to get home to his sister because obviously he is in love with her. And Joffrey is still on the Iron Throne being a little shit as usual. Sansa is stuck there in King's Landing still, and then Jon has basically just left the Wildlings, so he infiltrated them and now he has left them, which means that he's also left one of my favourite characters, Ygritte. He's going to travel back to the Wall to try and get back with the Night's Watch. Oh, and Bran is still kind of going about trying to find out what all of his dreams mean, because he has these dreams where he becomes his wolf, Summer. Now the dire wolves are different to normal wolves, so they're like massive versions. Bran can become his dire wolf, and he's actually found that he can put himself into other people as well. He's been trying with Hodor. So he's going to try and figure out what that means. And yeah, I think that that is enough background, hopefully. If you want to check out my review for that book, like I say, you can check it out down below. But now let's get on to my review for Blood and Gold. Oh my goodness, this book is just absolutely bloody incredible. Honestly, I could not stop reading this. I did not want to put it down. I just absolutely devoured it. And I've literally just finished this, and I'm already starting the next one. I haven't left a gap in between because I just want to know what the heck is going to happen. This book is so full of everything that can make you feel any emotion you've ever thought that you could feel. I cried, I laughed, I felt warm, I felt horrible feelings inside of me, pain, just, oh. This author is not afraid to kill off anyone. He will just do it. Okay, so obviously spoilers. By now you guys know that, but this book has got the infamous Red Wedding and it's also got the Purple Wedding. If you've seen the show, you know what I'm on about. If not, at the Red Wedding, Robb goes to visit the Freys to kind of make amends for him obviously marrying someone else that wasn't a Frey. So he goes to visit them and he takes his mother and they kill them all. So Robb is dead, as is his mum, and most of his allies are dead as well if they didn't already escape. And Arya actually sees this when she's there with the Hound. She does actually end up seeing her mother dead, which is really horrible. Thankfully she doesn't see Robb, but she hears all the stories from all the people there at the camp there when they visit after it's happened. So yeah, she basically then travels with the Hound and deals with this horrible guilt that she could have maybe saved them if she'd have got there earlier. Jon got back to the Wall. All of the Wildlings came and tried to infiltrate the Night's Watch, and there was this massive battle. And then Stannis Baratheon came and helped them. And then you've got the Purple Wedding where Joffrey dies. He is poisoned and they assume that it's Tyrion and Sansa. Sansa escapes. She's actually rescued by Littlefinger, but Tyrion takes the blame for it and is sentenced to death. But he finds someone to fight for him and then they die. So he is sentenced to death again, and then Jaime releases him and he kills his own dad. Littlefinger kills Catelyn's sister, Lysa, and also kisses Sansa. Tyrion not only kills his own dad, but he also kills Shay, who was the person that he was completely in love with and enamoured with. It turns out she actually slept with his dad. John may have lost Ygritte, but he is made Lord Commander, and at the very end of this, there is something that happened that didn't happen in series. So Catelyn Stark is reanimated, and she's got like scars where she clawed her own face as she was dying, and she's all like milky and bloated from being in the water for so long. She's reanimated, so she's not dead. I have no idea what's going to happen in the next book. I'm only, I think, 30 pages in. I really couldn't read any more last night because I was so tired. But yeah, this book is just filled with everything you could ever think of. It's got political intrigue, backstabbing, plenty of death, that's for sure, and war, violence, not a lot of romance this time around, just pure craziness, and everyone that you didn't expect to die or didn't want to die ends up dying. And there's just such a huge setup for what on earth is going to happen next and where the story is going to go, especially that ending. I just don't understand. They completely left it out of the series, so I wasn't expecting it. And I read it and my jaw just dropped. I was like, she's not dead. Well, she is dead, but she's not dead. Yeah, so let's talk about a couple of main things that I really, really loved about this. Obviously, I loved the whole thing, but there are a couple parts that I really enjoyed. So I think the main thing that really stood out for me was both Jon and Tyrion's character development. We'll start with Tyrion. So obviously his whole life he's been seen as this kind of monster and seen as the person that killed his mother, even though it wasn't his fault. He was literally just born. So as the novels have gone on, we've kind of seen this change in Tyrion where he realises that if people are going to see him as this monster, he may as well do some of the things that they're saying that he's going to do. And he always seems to put his trust in the wrong people, and he literally has no one that he can turn to that he can 100% trust. Even his own brother, he definitely can't trust his sister, and he can't even trust the woman that he fell in love with either. So the fact that he ends up killing all of those people and doing all these things, it shouldn't really be such a surprise because he's been treated like that anyway. So at this point, it's almost as if he's thought, oh, I may as well do it. And I think that's really interesting. I found it really fun to read. And even though it is quite dark and violent, it was something that I did really enjoy having a read of. I also enjoyed that there was a lot more talk about the magic. Again, the magic system isn't really like set in stone. It isn't written down for you in an info dump for you to read about. At least not so far in the books that I've read. But it is definitely there, and it's a lot more prominent in this book specifically, especially with these kind of green dreams and the fact that Bran can kind of see through Summer's eyes and can put himself into Hodor's body and things like that. And then Arya seems to be able to do that as well, so I don't know if it's the Starks because they believe in like the old gods, maybe they've got old powers. I'm not 100% sure. I do wish there was a little bit more magic like we got in the second book when Daenerys goes into that. It's called the House of Shadows. I really enjoyed that. It was written in a very particular way that I really, really liked, and I haven't really found that in the books following. Maybe it'll come up again in the next ones, who knows. I feel like we're getting a little bit more of an insight into the Whites as well, which is really interesting, and just overall I found everything in this book to be very cool. I really enjoyed reading it. It felt very fantastical and fun. And I think just the realisation as I was reading this that Martin is not afraid to do whatever the heck he wants to do. Obviously it's his series, he does what he wants. But he doesn't care if he kills off your favourite character. He's not bothered about that. He just has in his mind the story that he wants to do and the plot of the story where he wants to take it, and he'll do anything to get there. So it may seem like such a shocker when you read it for the first time, but I just think that's amazing, and it's very rare that I've ever felt that when reading a book, like pure shock and horror. Anyway, yeah, with Jon, so his kind of character development, he started off as a very kind of innocent young lad, and now he's seen so much. He's obviously seen the Whites and the others. He's seen this different kind of way of life when being with the wildlings and being with Ygritte. And he's found someone that cares about him and someone that wants him there, and he's never really had that before. His kind of step-siblings, and he did have a kind of connection with them, but with Ygritte it's very pure, and it feels like they've got an actual love for each other. And then when she died, it was just really heartbreaking and really emotional. Again, if you've seen the series, that scene in itself is just horrible, and I really hated watching it. But at the same time, I loved watching it because it made me feel that. Now, it does happen slightly differently in the books. So Ollie, as far as I know, doesn't even exist in the books. I haven't read his name anywhere that I can remember. And Jon actually doesn't know as of yet who was the person to kill Ygritte. He isn't sure, he didn't see it happen. He just found her like after the battle. and I think that made it even worse because he was genuinely expecting to find her alive and then she just wasn't. But I think his character development is something that I really like because he's feeling all these different emotions and maybe feeling more of a sense of belonging, which he didn't have before. And it's changing his personality and changing him as a person. And I feel like it's making him a harder and stronger person. He's one of the characters whose chapters I most look forward to reading. And I am more enjoying Arya's storyline. I think that she's kind of growing up as a person, and yeah, she's becoming more violent, but she can really stand up for herself. But she's also realising that arrogance doesn't always get her to the place where she needs to be, and she needs to start thinking a bit more about her actions and what she's saying to people. Same with Sansa. I feel like she's thinking a bit more about what's going on, and obviously she's growing up, so her character is also growing up. Yeah, but overall this book was just amazing. It's jam-packed, full of action, and it's so shocking to read, and I'm just so glad that I finally read it, and I'm really excited to read the rest of the series. So yeah, a very obvious 5-star read for me, this one. But yeah, that is it from me today. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!